Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're going to do some brief technical analysis on Cardano and specifically that price action of ADA. As we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here. Right, with all that's out of the way, let's dive into this technical analysis and talk about what's going on with ADA. So we're going to start things off, guys, with the weekly chart, as we usually do, and kind of gives you a good idea of where the structure currently sits. Everything kind of started back in March of 2020. Wave 1 up here around the June, July, August time. Wave 2 kind of was a slow one, bottomed out for us with ADA in September of 2020. Good surge to the upside in Wave 3, if I can draw an arrow there, up to the outside. And this was around May time, okay, for us. Then we had this correction wave you see here, bottoming out with Wave 4. Around about June time, okay? Then we started to see the recovery push back to the upside with all-time high and then a slight pullback in the last couple of weeks. Now, the structure of this is pretty much intact. 5 impulse waves to the upside, okay? There are obviously 2 correction waves within our 5 impulse wave. Wave 2 was flat, so wave 4 was sharp. If wave 4 had been flat, then wave 2 would have been sharp. They are always the opposites of each other. And we know that's one of the rules for Elliott theory here with those impulse waves to the upside. The other thing is to make sure that wave 4 does not cross wave 1. So we also knew that there was a theoretical low and we never actually came anywhere near it. So again, everything's looking pretty good for Cardano at that particular point. We can also see that basically during our lows of March 2020 that we were oversold on the stochastic RSI, pushed up into the overbought area for wave 1. Wave 2 was oversold, wave 3 was overbought, and wave 4 was oversold, and we're back up here in the overbought area. Although there's a slight dip, very similar to what happened over here with wave 3, specifically around this one just here. Okay, we surged up to a high, higher than our wave 1, and then we pulled back down below it, traded sideways for a couple of weeks, and then we surged to the upside. We can take a look, we surged up, we went higher than our wave 3, and we're starting to go sideways for a little bit here. So ultimately, things are starting to gear up, I think, to a nice move to the upside. So overall, nothing strange about this. The structure is very much intact. We can be overbought for quite some time in the same way that we were for wave 3. I would anticipate that there are going to be a couple of corrections on the journey to where we think we are going with Cardano. Now, obviously, when we take the current performance of wave 3 and wave 4, this actually puts us at about $7.22. But we do like to think that we can go after a nice psychological $10. And if we do get some serious volume and some migration from Ethereum, then really we could push to maybe even $15 or $20. I have actually marked up in green the kind of like God mode of $25. So we'll have to see how things kind of play out. $10 is very much achievable. It's only $320 billion market cap, which is lower than Ethereum right now. So as things heat up, all boats will rise with the rising tide. So Bitcoin's market cap would go up. Obviously, Ethereum's market cap would go up, and Cardano. So to think that Cardano would end up with about a $320 billion market cap would be pretty, understandable and pretty in line with where I think it's likely to end up. So overall, not too bad. Obviously, market cap is not representing the amount of money that flows into a project. We obviously talk about this all the time. But market cap is just a simple calculation of the last sold price multiplied by the circulating supply. It gives us a notion of value without actually giving us the underlying value. So it's important that we acknowledge that it's actually quite a meaningless number. But I know it does resonate with a lot of people in terms of being able to rank cryptocurrencies, right? So to think that it can go to 320 is very easy. It's not actually problematic at all. Obviously, there's a huge amount of the supply of Cardano actually delegated. And therefore, again, the circulating supply is actually tighter, it's squeezed. So once we start seeing that demand, i.e. that transactional volume on all those dApps and smart contracts that are now running on the system, we're going to see a huge surge in price, I do believe. So overall, this weekly chart is looking very good. Nothing to really report what's wrong with it. We are still sticking to structure and we are working our way up nicely. So when we jump down into our daily view, this is where we get a little bit more of the detail of what's been going on. So obviously here we can see the Fibonacci retracement tool, taking into consideration a high of 3, the low of 4. And with this, we can obviously see that we go up to about that $7.22 range. But again, this current performance doesn't take into consideration any new dApps or, smart contracts, right? This just looks at what's been going on previously. So I think that we are actually going to smash past that $7.22 with that transactional volume. And I think we're actually going to be heading up towards the $10 range very, very comfortably. So overall, it's good to know that we could end up with at least $7.22 based on performance. And then obviously we'll just have to adjust to see how things go. Now, the other things about this daily chart is that we are oversold, right? So right now we're right down at the bottom looking for that nice surge to the upside. But for now, I do think we're just going to continue to trade sideways here. But ultimately, there's a nice upward trend. And we can see this if I actually grab hold of my trend line here. We can actually just push this on. Here you can see that trend line right there. So for us right now, it's going to be key to holding this daily trend line. Okay, if we're able to do this and we continue to grow, then we can see that actually within the next little while, the next couple of weeks or so, we're going to get tighter and tighter and tighter inside this triangular wedge, where I do think we're going to explode to new all-time highs. Again, that first price target still sits there at $3.37, and we were rejected from $3.10 just up here, courtesy of Bitcoin. So ultimately, I do think we're going to see some pretty good progression here. If we can keep that trend, that's going to be good. And again, this is a trend that we've had since late July, okay? Back tested here and retesting recently. Obviously, going up significantly from here is something that I do see. Obviously, we got the Cardano Summit towards the end of September. So me and Chris, we are going to be there. We're going to do some vlogging on that one. So if you are in London and you're attending the Cardano Summit, then do join us. We'll love to meet up with you there, which will be fantastic. So ultimately, the daily chart's looking pretty good. Obviously, triangular wedge is formed if we can keep the support of this trend line. We've got good progression with our Fibonacci areas. The 4.236 is obviously only at $7.22, but it's a good target to be aiming for. And I do think we're going to be pushing up a little bit further than that anyway. And guys, this video has been sponsored by 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏, and specifically the Cardano ADA pool. If you are looking to support the channel and our effort here to communicate out all the recent kind of news, articles, price changes and price action of your favorite altcoins, then there's no better way than delegating your ADA into our stake pool. By doing so, you'll not only support the channel, but you will also earn a juicy return and a nice passive income on your ADA holdings. It's really simple to do, guys. Just load up your 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗏 or Deadliest wallet, drop your ADA into the wallet, and then find the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏 pool via the ticker 𝗕𝗘. In doing so, you'll earn a nice juicy return and support the channel. There is no better time to do so, so why not delegate to 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏 today? So at this point, we'll just jump over to the advice.io dashboard. Here we can obviously take a look at the underlying data. So obviously using artificial intelligence, machine learning to help us understand the underlying value of a cryptocurrency. And here we get a little bit more detail outside of the chart. So what we can see is the fear and greed index is a C1. So ultimately, there's a lot of fear now for Cardano. And ultimately, this is around usually the sell the news event. But I think actually it was helped along with Bitcoin. I think if Bitcoin hadn't pulled back the way that it had done, I don't think many people would have been in the sell the news scenario. There was a little bit of FUD circulating around before the smart contracts kind of launched and a little bit after, a lot around concurrency and things like that. But a lot of that is just misconceptions with not understanding how to actually write with a different language and different models. But ultimately, everything on the fear and greed index, I think, will improve shortly. We are still okay, but there is fear there and we cannot ignore that. Ultimately, when there's fear inside one of the waves, such as 1, 3, or 5, those tend to be the fear that you want to be buying up, because that's the kind of fear that isn't going to come around all too often. So for me, that's an interesting metric I like to pay attention to. The moving averages are an A2, so there's no problem with the moving averages. The Sharpe ratio is an A2. So the Sharpe ratio is your risk-reward ratio. And right now, this is still in our favor. So above the 50-day average, no problems to report with the Sharpe ratio. Although we have got closer to our 50-day average, it is still an A2 rating, so no indication of problems there from the AI or ML. Ultimately, we have an ROI of an A1, and the AMI-HAD ratio is an A2. So overall, no problem with profitability, no problem with liquidity, no problem with risk reward, no problem with moving averages. The only issue that Cardano has right now is sentiment with fear in the space. So obviously knowing this, we can jump down into our lower timeframes and know what's likely to happen next. Now, ultimately, there were a downward trend line. We were tracking this quite nicely. We can see that was a downward trend here. And then there was also an upward trend from the lower bound, and we were tracking this as well. Now, ultimately, there was this one, and we got that broken, but then there's a new trend that's appeared over here, right? So if I zoom out, and we can see that actually we're tracking this one all the way from down at the lower bound down here, all the way up. Now, we weren't touching on these lines exactly, but they're getting to a pretty interesting point. So if I actually just expand this down a little bit and just move that in line there, what we can do is we can see that if I just remove this line that was broken, we are getting tighter and tighter inside this triangular wedge here. So if I actually pull this down, we'll see that these things will be meeting on the 23rd of September. Now, the 23rd of September, guys, is the summit for Cardano. So here we can obviously assume that something major is going to be happening. Now, there's lots of rumors about big partnerships and things like that. And this could actually lead to a huge spike towards that triangular wedge that we have at the end there. The other scenario is, of course, that actually things actually move beforehand and actually pull back and then obviously move on again. So again, we'll be watching this. So the hourly is an interesting one. We are overbought right now, so we are expecting a small pullback. We want to be retesting our trend line on the smaller time frames. Lose that momentum out of there. Like I said, there's fear in the space, so we are going to see a protection of price here. I think we are going to basically come all the way down to our trend, and hopefully we'll then ride that to the upside afterwards. So right now we need to see that that needle kind of fall down on our stochastic. We need to make sure that our trend line holds out really well in order to see that kind of happen by the 23rd. Ultimately, the smaller time frame has a little bit of volatility, but obviously the daily and of course the weekly have good structures still. So all of this volatility on the smaller time frames doesn't necessarily bother me too much. Obviously, we just have to make sure that we're aware of what is going on so we do not act emotionally. And if we are ever in doubt, that we do zoom out and we pay attention to the bigger picture and where things are going. I don't think there are many Cardano ADA holders who are overly frustrated with this one. It has performed incredibly well so far. And I think it is going to continue to perform incredibly well until we kind of see the end of the bull run. And guys, I'm going to leave that there, but hopefully you have found this brief update on Cardano useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, why not subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. Right, with that said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.